My husband got the violin in 1965 or so, and he got it from a violin shop in Washington, D.C. Now, before I met him, he had seen this violin in that same shop and wanted to buy it, but he couldn't afford it at the time. And then in the meantime, we got married and things got a little better. He went to get it, and it was gone. It had been sold. And of course, he was really heartbroken about that.
Fortunately, a few years later, the shop contacted him to say that the violin had returned, and he purchased it with great pride. The instrument bears its original label, Nicolas Lupot, Paris 1798, and represents a refined example associated with the work of Nicolas Lupot, widely regarded as the foremost French violin maker of his time. Lupot's instruments were strongly influenced by Stradivari's Golden Period models, which is evident in the elegant proportions and well-balanced arching seen here. Several construction details support this attribution, notably the lightly scribed center line on the scroll that Lupot often left visible, as well as the finely executed purfling incorporating whalebone in the dark outer strips, a material characteristic of his work. The varnish displays a deep, vibrant brownish-red tone typical of Lupot, while the back and ribs are made from highly figured maple, paired with a fine spruce top. The accompanying bow is a fine French violin bow from the second half of the 19th century, made in the style of the Dominique Picquet school. Although not by Picquet himself, its craftsmanship and playing qualities are excellent, placing its current market value at around $20,000.
I think probably a retail value for this violin should be about $140,000. The bow, you've also had appraised, and I noticed written on the side, $7,000. I think this is a very fine French violin bow of the second half of the 19th century, probably valued more in the range of $20,000, so $7,000 was a little cheap.
Wow, that's good.
Thanks for bringing it.
Thank you very much. Well, that's terrific to hear. Makes my day.
My uncle played the violin, and I think I was earmarked to have this violin as the person to bequeath it to. I got a little violin when I was 7 years old and was coerced into playing. He dated the violin teacher, so I played all those years, and I started to enjoy it when I was in high school, and then I played it through college, and recently I've just played it in my daughter's preschool and grade school, and last December
The violin is identified as belonging to the tradition of the Gagliano family of Naples, dating to around 1800 to 1810, during the later phase of this influential dynasty. Although the label bears the name Nicola Gagliano, stylistic details suggest it was likely a collaborative work involving Nicola and his sons, Giuseppe and Antonio, rather than a single hand. The instrument follows a classic Gagliano model, characterized by broad, powerful arching that produces a strong, projecting sound, a quality long favored by professional players. The top is likely made from Italian red spruce, while the sides and back are crafted from high-quality Yugoslavian maple, prized for its lightness, strength, and acoustic response. Wear on the scroll and back, contrasted with well-preserved protected areas, reflects both its age and extensive use, while much of the original varnish remains intact. Accompanying the violin is a French bow from the workshop of Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume, likely made by one of his leading makers, such as François-Nicolas Voirin. Despite visible wear and past repairs to the frog, the bow retains fine balance and playing qualities, complementing the violin with the elegance and precision characteristic of the French bow-making tradition.
I'm going to value the bow at $12,000 to $14,000.
Really?
And the violin at $60,000 to $80,000. Very
Really?
Conservatively, and that would be an auction value.
Wow. I would have never guessed.
This belonged to my grandmother, who played the violin. She went to Europe with her family on the grand tour. It would probably be in the late 1800s. She was a young woman then. And one of the things they bought was this violin when they were in Italy.
This violin was acquired in Italy in the late 19th century and later brought to the United States, where its origin became the subject of differing expert opinions. Early attributions ranged from Joseph Guarneri to Giovanni Battista Ceruti, reflecting how challenging it can be to identify Italian instruments without a definitive signature. Close examination, however, confirms that it is unmistakably Italian work. The scroll is compact and powerfully carved, recalling the Guarneri tradition, while the body reveals refined Italian craftsmanship through the F-holes, whose wings are carefully finished with controlled variations in thickness. The edgework around the bouts is even and precise, then subtly scooped as it approaches the corners, another hallmark of Italian making. The varnish, thinly and sensitively applied, points not to the 18th century but rather to the early 19th century, around 1810 to 1820. Taken together, these features support an attribution to the Ceruti school period, making the violin a fine and authentic example of early 19th century Italian craftsmanship, best preserved with minimal intervention and respectful restoration for playability.
With this instrument in this condition, I'd give it an estimate of between $18,000 and I'd probably say $26,000, somewhere in that range at auction.
Wow, wonderful.
They used to belong to my brother's wife. They both passed away. They passed away prematurely because probably they lived in the fast lane. She was the violinist.
I see.
And her dad was a music teacher. And her dad came from Czechoslovakia. And all I know about these, I think they're from Czechoslovakia, I'm not sure.
And so she turned out to be a professional violinist.
Yes.
Well, these are both Czech violins, and these are two of the best Czech makers.
This group of instruments represents a high level of Czech violin making, a tradition often less widely known than the Italian or French schools, but respected for its disciplined craftsmanship and strong tonal character. The first violin was made by Ferdinandus Homolka in Prague in 1873, a maker frequently referred to as the Stradivarius of Prague because of his reputation and the consistent quality of his work. The instrument shows refined construction, balanced proportions, and careful wood selection, all contributing to a clear and powerful sound, and it has survived in notably fine condition. The second violin, dated 1927, was made by Julius Hubitschka, a maker trained under Spittelin. Its label reflects a deliberate homage to his teacher, combining respect for lineage with Hubitschka's own hand. Together, these two violins illustrate the continuity and depth of the Czech school across generations. Accompanying them is a distinguished bow by James Tubbs, one of the most important English bow makers of the late 19th century, whose work is prized for its balance and responsiveness. Although some components show later replacement or repair, the bow still reflects the playing qualities that made Tubbs bows highly sought after by professional musicians.
Today, a Homolka like this has a retail price between $20,000 and $25,000.
Whoa.
The Hubecka, around $12,000.
Wow.
The Tubbs bow, the button is not original. It detracts a little bit from this price, but even at that would have a retail value around $13,000. This next bow is a good quality German bow, around $1,500. This bow right here, the other bows are inconsequential of $100 or so each.
That's really good. That's great. Wow.
My wife and I were driving home in San Antonio, Texas, and I saw a military footlocker that I wanted to stop and pick up. We saw the violin sitting in the trash and picked it up. Well, we picked it up. My wife has a violin that belonged to her grandfather, and we thought we could use it for parts to repair it. My wife took it into a place in San Antonio. They said it would cost $350 to get it appraised, and so at that point they made her an offer, and she decided that it might be worth something and brought it back home.
Right. And what did they offer her?
They offered her $1,000 for it.
Yes.
This violin has an extraordinary origin story, having been rescued from the trash and initially mistaken for a source of spare parts. Despite its neglected appearance, close examination shows that the heavy grime is simply accumulated rosin and dirt from years of playing, not structural damage. Beneath this layer, the original warm orange-brown varnish remains intact, a clear sign of fine Italian workmanship. Inside the instrument is the maker's label of Giuseppe Pedrazzini, dated 1922. Pedrazzini was a highly respected Italian violin maker associated with the modern Italian school. Born near Cremona, the historic heart of violin making, he trained under Romeo Antoniazzi and later became one of the leading figures of the Milan school. The violin displays hallmarks of his craftsmanship, particularly the deeply carved scroll and the refined overall construction. The quality of the materials, the precision of the work, and the confirmed authorship together reveal this instrument as an authentic and important example of early 20th century Italian violin making, whose true character only becomes clear through careful expert analysis.
Do you have any idea about the value of something like this?
I have no idea, other than what the appraiser in San Antonio offered.
Well, I believe an instrument like this, of course, after it's cleaned up and put into good condition, would have a value of around $50,000.
$50,000?
$50,000, a retail value, $50,000.
Wow.
In its current condition, at an auction for retail musical instruments, would bring around $35,000.
Wow. So we should get this violin restored, or cleaned up, I guess.
My grandfather's second wife was coming from East Germany to West Germany, and she brought a lot of possessions, including this violin. He was actually, I guess, he was in the Army, and apparently he met her right at the crossing, and that's how that started. I've shown it to a few people in Santa Fe, and they've said it's a nice violin. Nobody said it's awesome or a Stradivarius, and they gave me a couple of numbers.
What were those numbers?
Somebody said 5 to 7.
The violin bears a label from the workshop of Romeo Antoniazzi, a highly respected Italian maker whose shop flourished in the early 20th century. While the label itself is authentic to the shop, the instrument was not made by Romeo personally, but was instead sold through his workshop, a common practice in Italy at the time, where instruments by outside makers were marketed under well-known names. Close examination of the construction reveals that the true maker was Claudio Gamberini of Bologna, active around 1920. This attribution is supported by several distinctive features, including the pronounced beaded edge, the elongated peg box with a large open scroll eye, and the choice of wood. The back is made from finely figured Opio maple, a species native to northern Italy and frequently used by Gamberini for its excellent acoustic qualities. The varnish is applied thinly, allowing the wood's texture to remain visible, another hallmark of his work.
Well, the price of a Gamberini violin at auction in 2005 was $21,000.
Wow.
That was almost 10 years ago. Nowadays, I'd place it in the auction category at about $28,000 to $35,000.
Wow.
If it was sold privately or in a violin shop at retail level, it would probably be closer to $35,000.
That's really interesting. Really interesting. That's fabulous.
It was my grandfather's. He was a musical director at WJR radio station in Detroit for 20-some years. And it was the violin he used in his orchestra, and it's passed down in the family. And I don't really know anything about it.
And you brought in these two fabulous photos.
Yeah. I have a lot of pictures of when they were recording at WJR, but they didn't write the names on the back of the pictures, so I don't know who they are.
By the way they're dressed, it looks like maybe the 1930s, early 40s, do you think? This is clearly your grandfather,
Yes.
Paul Lavoie.
Lavoie.
This violin is a fine example of early 19th century French violin making, identifiable by the label of Jean-Laurent Clement, a Paris-based dealer and workshop owner active after moving from Miracourt around 1810. Although Clement was not a maker himself, he employed some of the most skilled craftsmen of the period. Based on the quality of workmanship, materials, and varnish, this instrument is widely attributed to a maker working under his shop, very likely Georges Chanot, whose style closely matches what is seen here. The violin can be dated to around 1820. It is constructed using traditional tone woods, with spruce for the top and maple for the back, ribs, neck, and scroll, materials that have defined violin making since the 16th century. The varnish is rich and characteristic of high-quality Parisian instruments of the period. A long crack running along the belly significantly affects its condition, though this type of damage is structurally repairable by a professional restorer. Accompanied by a period alligator leather case, the violin represents both an important historical instrument and a strong example of early French workshop production.
It's very beautiful maple. A violin like this, in the retail market, would sell for at least $30,000 to $40,000.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And it would be worth more if that crack were
condition.
fixed.
Yeah. Okay, so it is fixable?
It's very fixable.
Okay.
It would not be inexpensive to fix this crack, and I suspect there's about $2,000 of repair work.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This is a violin that's been in our family for years, decades. It was my father's. My father had a long, illustrious career in the Air Force and rose to the rank of a Major General. I don't know how much he paid for it, but he would have picked it up probably in the mid-1970s during one of his tours to Germany. It never was repaired. We've never obviously tried to play it. It hung on the wall, and it's an unusual piece, and I think that's probably why it had prominence and just as a wall hanging.
This violin can be identified as a rare and refined example of late 18th century German violin making from Mittenwald in the Bavarian Alps, one of the most important historical centers of the craft. Although the instrument contains multiple labels, including a repair label from H. Voigt in Vienna dated 1879 and a spurious Latinized label bearing the name of Niccolo Amati, these do not reflect its true origin. The decisive evidence is a third label, discreetly placed on the inside rib, which reads Matthias Hornsteiner, Lauten- und Geigenmacher, Mittenwald, 1781. The Hornsteiner family, alongside the Klotz family, stood at the very core of Mittenwald violin making, and Matthias Hornsteiner II is widely regarded as the most accomplished member of that lineage. The violin retains an exceptional degree of originality, including its sculpted lion head pegbox carved from pear wood, a distinctive and highly decorative feature. The back is made from bird's eye maple, a striking and uncommon figure characteristic of certain high-quality German instruments of this period. The body remains largely untouched, showing careful preservation, while wear on the fingerboard confirms that it was once actively and lovingly played. A 19th century neck modification by H. Voigt brought the instrument to modern playing standards without compromising its historical integrity.
We would put a retail value on it of $20,000.
Oh my, really? Really?
That's right, and that's conservative.
It's going to stay in the family and be a masterpiece for our family for a long time. It's just a wonderful piece. We knew it was. We just had no idea how great it was.
I brought in my grandfather's violin. My mom and dad always called him Pops. He died in 1945, so I never got to meet him. But he made violins, and he repaired violins for the Philharmonic, the Boston Pops, the New York Symphony. He worked for a company for a while, and then he opened up his own shop. And when he passed away, my mother took one of his violins, and I played this violin since I was in second grade, and till I had an injury, could play no more, and I am dying to find out what to insure it for.
This violin was made by Nicolas Heinz, an American violin maker and restorer active in the early 20th century. Heinz began his formal training at the age of 14 under Friedrich Koenig in New York City, one of the leading makers of the period. He later worked for major firms and workshops in Chicago and Philadelphia, including Lyon and Healy, before opening his own shop in 1926. His professional background explains his close association with major orchestras such as the Boston Pops and the New York Philharmonic. The instrument bears an original label reading Nicolas Heinz, violin maker and repairer, along with a branded mark N. Heinz, burned into the wood, both clear indicators of authorship. It is constructed from traditional, high-quality materials, with a spruce top and flamed maple back and ribs. The craftsmanship is confident and refined, from the well-shaped arching to the elegantly carved pegs and tailpiece, some of which were likely sourced from Germany, as was common practice at the time. Accompanied by a French bow stamped Paris, this violin represents master-level American workmanship, enriched further by the surviving tools, photographs, and documents that illuminate the maker's working life.
So the bow is intact. In the world of retail, I would value this bow at $4,000.
Holy Hannah!
It's a beautiful bow.
Wow! Wonderful.
The violin I would value
at
$12,000. It's a master quality instrument.
Oh, sweetie, I love that.
And all of the ephemera that you brought, the tools and the pictures and the letters, I would say, in combined with the value, would add $3,000 to its value.
Oh my goodness.
So all the ephemera in the violin should always stay together.
Well, it was about 1963. And my music teacher decided I was doing pretty well. And he said, you need a slightly better violin than the one you're playing. And he offered this to me. He said he found it because it fit my size and he thought it would be good for me. And it cost $180. At that point, I was having to pay for the music lessons and my parents didn't have the $180. So they told me, if you can come up with half the money, we'll get it for you. We'll make up for the rest.
This violin bears the label Salvatore Rossani, Milano, 1910, a name that initially suggests Italian origin. Closer examination and historical research indicate that it is, in fact, a German instrument made in Markneukirchen, one of the most important violin-making centers in Europe. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, German workshops often used Italian-sounding names to enhance their appeal in the global market. Although the exact maker cannot be identified, the violin is constructed from high-quality tonewood and finished with a refined varnish, characteristics typical of well-crafted Markneukirchen instruments from this period. Today, a violin of this type would generally retail in the range of $5,000 to $7,000. The accompanying bow is particularly noteworthy. Stamped E. Sartory, Paris. It displays the workmanship, balance, and stylistic details associated with authentic bows by Eugène Sartory, one of the most respected French bow makers of the early 20th century. The French tradition in bow making is widely regarded as the pinnacle of the craft, and this bow exemplifies that legacy. While the violin itself is a fine instrument, the bow stands out as the most historically and artistically significant component of the set.
So in the retail world, a violin like this these days sells for between $5,000 and $7,000.
Very good.
So let's talk about the bow a little bit. So I've looked at this bow extremely carefully, and it has all the marks of an actual Sartory that was made late in his life. He lived between 1871 and 1946. And I would say a conservative retail figure would be $20,000.
Oh my goodness.
I went to college in 1968. and my instructor told me that I needed a better violin than the one I had, and we paid $600 for it, which was a lot of money back then.
In 1968, you're right, $600 was a lot of money. What did you understand the violin to be when you bought it?
Well, we were told it was an original instrument.
Okay.
The label inside, of course, didn't mean a lot to me, but we were told it was, at that point, about 100 years old.
The label inside reads J.B. Vuillaume, Paris 1861, and includes a signature, but closer examination raises doubts about a direct attribution. Vuillaume's authentic labels from that period were numbered rather than dated, and he did not sign labels in this manner. Despite the questionable label, the violin itself displays unmistakably high-quality French workmanship. The purfling is executed with great precision, especially where it flows cleanly into the corners, revealing the hand of a skilled maker. Stylistically, the instrument aligns with French violins made after Vuillaume's death, likely around 1880, possibly by one of the accomplished craftsmen who continued his tradition, such as those associated with the Derésy circle. It stands today as a finely made French violin, respected for its craftsmanship, materials, and musical character.
Now, I can't 100% say that this is a Derésy, but it is of the quality of the work of Derésy.
Okay.
And I would value this violin in the retail market today at $25,000.
Oh, wow. That's great. That is great. That's wonderful.
So I think you picked out a beautiful violin.
Thank you.
Well, when I was young, I played the violin, and in 1958, I was invited to join the Worcester Youth Orchestra, and my great-uncle knew the director of the orchestra, Harry Levinson, who was also my violin teacher. And Uncle Abe asked Harry if he could find a violin for me that he could give me as a gift when I joined the orchestra. And this is the violin that he found.
Yeah, this is a very beautiful violin.
This violin is attributed to François Breton of Mirecourt, France, and is believed to date to around 1830. Mirecourt was a major center of French violin making, renowned for producing instruments of high technical and artistic quality. The violin reflects this tradition through its refined workmanship and balanced proportions. Several characteristics support the early 19th century dating. The instrument retains features typical of violins made before the mid-1800s, including an original shorter neck from the Baroque tradition, prior to later modifications intended to increase volume and projection. The varnish is rich and well preserved, displaying the depth and warmth associated with fine French work of the period. The tone wood is exceptional, particularly the back, which is made from tightly flamed maple of outstanding quality.
Today, I would expect this to be hanging on the wall of a good violin shop with a price tag of between $15,000 and $20,000 at retail. So it's really a beautiful violin, and for insurance purposes, you could probably insure it for $25,000, maybe even $30,000. It's a very fine professional violin.
Thank you.
I have a feeling you were young when you started to play the violin.
I was about 12 years old and played through high school. I expected to become a concert violinist and instead went on to be an engineer.
So you were serious. You had a good teacher too?
I had a great teacher. He was a violinist, a concert violinist in his own right. He's the one that got me interested in trying to get a good violin to go on to a music career.
I suspect your parents must have taken you seriously in order to fund a new violin.
They did. They made me get a paper out and work to pay for it.
That's great.
This violin reflects the ambitions of a serious young player and the standards of a professional instrument. Purchased in 1962 through a Chicago violin house, it was long believed to be an early 18th century violin from southern France or northern Italy. Later examination, however, reveals a more accurate and historically grounded attribution. The label reads, Heinrich Willems, Ghent, dated 1728, but stylistic and constructional evidence shows that this is not an 18th century instrument, nor a later reproduction of one. Instead, it is a Dutch violin made in the early 19th century, around the 1820s, and is best described as the work of the Cuypers school, a respected family tradition of violin makers active in the Netherlands over several generations. Several features support this identification. The varnish displays a dry, slightly scaly texture typical of Dutch instruments, caused by a glue ground beneath the varnish. The purfling is bold, dark, and executed with great precision, a technically demanding detail associated with high-level craftsmanship. The violin is constructed with a spruce belly and a beautifully flamed maple back, reflecting careful material selection and refined workmanship throughout.
And the value today, a conservative value in the retail market, would be $25,000.
Oh, great. That's a lot more than I thought it was. Well, thank you very much for that good news.
Jim, thanks for bringing in your family violin. What strikes me is this violin is like so many we see. It's covered with dust. It's got bug larvae in the case. The case is falling apart, and it looks like it's been abandoned for just years. Can you tell me what you know about this violin?
I thought it belonged to one of my great aunts who died as a child back at around the turn of the century, but apparently it belonged to my great aunt Helen.
This violin is a significant example of American violin making, bearing an interior label that reads Carl Becker, Chicago, 1935, made for William Lewson's son. Carl Becker was one of the most influential violin makers in the United States and a central figure in a multi-generation Becker family dynasty that shaped American lutherie throughout the 20th century. The instrument displays refined craftsmanship, most notably in its richly colored red varnish and carefully finished maple back, which immediately distinguish it from mass-produced violins of the period. Despite years of neglect, the quality of the materials and the precision of the construction remain evident, confirming its status as a professional-level instrument. Violins by Becker were known for their tonal depth, structural integrity, and adherence to classical European traditions adapted to an American context. Dated to 1935, this violin represents a mature phase in Becker's career and stands as both a historically important artifact and a highly desirable musical instrument once properly restored.
And it's worth a lot more than that right now. Any idea at all?
You're going to shock me because I didn't have a clue.
This is a violin that's worth $25,000 to $30,000.
Oh my God. Thank you, Aunt Helen.
Yeah, really.
Gee, money, crickets.
This is going to be a great sounding violin when it gets fixed up. Yeah.
It was a violin that my Aunt Vivian had used. We know it's really old. It was inherited by my immediate family about 30 years ago. And frankly, it's been sitting in a closet over the last 30 years.
So your family believes that it's actually from the 16th century because it's got a label that says Gaspar Tiefenbrucker 1519. And it's something that your great aunt played in recital.
Yes,
and
she was quite a musician.
And it's been in your family all this time.
This violin immediately stands out for its highly unusual and decorative character. Instead of the traditional spiral scroll, the head is carved as a man's face, with finely detailed features such as the beard, eyes, and a distinctive hooked nose. Inspired by historic portrait imagery associated with Gaspar Tiefenbrucker. Along the fingerboard, flamed maple is used and richly inlaid, while the sides display relief carvings and wood inlay forming the impression of an old cityscape. The back is especially striking, combining relief carving, oil-painted decoration, and intricate inlaid wood to depict an ancient city scene. Despite the 16th century date suggested by the label, stylistic features and construction clearly point to a 19th century French origin. The violin was most likely made in the workshop of Derazy in Mirecourt, France, and reflects a careful revival of earlier decorative traditions rather than an original Renaissance instrument. Accompanying it is a bow that appears plain at first glance but proves to be of exceptional quality. It was made in the late 1940s in the Paris workshop of Eugène Sartory, featuring mother-of-pearl inlay, sterling silver fittings, and hand-carved details. Together, the violin and bow form a visually remarkable and historically interesting ensemble.
The value of your violin is between $3,000 and $4,000. The value of this bow, although it was purchased to accompany the violin probably for $100 or so, is worth at a retail violin shop $14,000 to $15,000 today.
Holy smokes. When was the bow made?
Late 1940s.
No kidding. Wow.
Well, it belonged to my late husband. It was given to him on his 16th birthday. He played small violins till then. This was his going up to the big one. He was a beautiful musician. He died about 25 years ago, and it was left to me. I knew it was old. He thought it was quite old. He insured it for quite a bit. After my husband died, I took it to a violin teacher, and he kind of appraised it a little bit, but he told me that it was a Paul Bailey. He found a date inside that said 1883.
This violin is identified as the work of Paul Bailly, a respected 19th century French maker associated with the Parisian school of violin making. Trained in Mirecourt, Bailly later moved to Paris, where he worked in the renowned workshop of Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume, the most influential violin-making firm of the mid-19th century. There, he mastered the refined Parisian style, characterized by crisp workmanship, clean and precise carving, elegant proportions, and a rich, well-balanced varnish. These qualities are clearly evident in this instrument. Paul Bailly was also known as a traveling maker, having worked in cities such as Brussels and London, and his labels often reference medals awarded at international exhibitions, reflecting both craftsmanship and professional recognition.
I would say, you had asked about insurance valuations. I have heard of fabulous examples like this selling in the retail market for upwards of $35,000.
Oh my gosh. Well, I knew, I was thinking maybe 10,000, maybe somewhere in there, but I had no idea.
Belonged to my great aunt Marie. She was a violinist in the Cincinnati area in Ohio. She moved out here and brought this one with her along with several others, and it's just basically been sitting in storage for 40 years.
So here we have a bill of sale from the Rudolf Wurlitzer Company in Cincinnati, September 27th, 1921. Rudolf Wurlitzer attests that this violin is a Camilli from 1737, made in Mantua, Italy, for the tremendous sum of $1,000 back in 1921.
This violin was purchased in 1921 from the Rudolf Wurlitzer Company in Cincinnati, with original documentation stating it as a Camilli violin from Mantua, dated 1737. At the time, it commanded a high price, reflecting the strong market for Italian instruments. Although it has remained unplayed for many decades, with broken gut strings and surface wear, the violin is structurally sound and clearly the work of a skilled maker. The instrument displays characteristics associated with the Mantua school, which was heavily influenced by Cremona and the tradition of Stradivari. The spruce top is carved with a broad, relatively flat arch that supports a powerful, projecting tone. The back and ribs are made from richly figured maple native to northern Italy, with visible tool marks that give the surface a slightly rugged yet authentic appearance. Despite its convincing details, The violin is not an original Camilli, but a finely made 19th century forgery, complete with a carefully written Latin label and matching registration records. Even so, it remains a high-quality instrument of notable value. The accompanying bow, though worn, is made from fine Pernambuco wood. Subtle construction details identify it as French work by Claude Thomassin, one of the leading bow makers of the 20th century. Together, the violin and bow represent exceptional craftsmanship and illustrate the complexities of attribution in the violin world.
The value of the bow is about the same as the value of the violin, and that is about $6,000 to $8,000.
Wow.
If it were a real Camillius Camilli, it would be worth about $250,000 to $300,000.
Jeez.
I picked it up about 3 years ago from a boutique in Santa Monica where I live. The bow came in the case. Didn't pay a lot for it, but I just appreciated its color. I appreciated that it had a nice feel to it.
Do you remember what you paid for it?
$80.
$80, okay.
This violin is an early 20th century professional instrument made by Auguste Falisse, a Belgian maker whose work reflects the strong Franco-Belgian violin-making tradition. The instrument is dated 1917 and retains its original label, an important factor in establishing both authenticity and historical value. Falisse was trained in Miracourt, France, one of the most important violin-making centers in Europe, where he studied under highly skilled masters. His reputation was further strengthened when he won the Concours de Paris in 1912, a prestigious competition in which his violin was judged to have superior tonal qualities compared to a Stradivarius. The violin is constructed using traditional materials, with a spruce top and flamed maple for the back, ribs, neck, and peg box. The craftsmanship is refined and confident, indicating a maker working at a high professional level. Accompanying the violin is a French bow made from Pernambuco wood, with an ebony frog mounted in sterling silver, likely produced around the same period. Together, these elements place the instrument firmly among desirable early 20th century European violins of professional caliber.
In a retail setting of $4,000.
For the bow?
For the bow.
Wow.
And the violin,
I was thinking $150.
the violin is a professional caliber violin. As you can see, it's not ready to be played right this instant, and so as is value would be $22,000.
Okay, that's very, very good. That's a lot more than I thought, a lot more.
Yeah.
I mean, I was thinking 6.
Oh, 6,000?
Yeah.
My parents bought me it as a gift when I was 13. I asked for one and asked for one and asked for one, and they finally said, okay.
Do you remember what they paid for it?
I believe it was $1,800 back in 1995.
Okay. And what can you tell me about the maker? What have you learned over the years?
I know it's made by, I believe it's Robert Glier, and he was born in Germany, but then had a violin shop in Cincinnati, which is where it was made. It was made in 1914, and it says it's a #1. I don't know exactly what that means.
This violin was made in 1914 by Robert Glier, an American maker of German origin who established his workshop in Cincinnati, a city that became an important center of violin making in the United States during the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Glier belonged to a long lineage of violin makers dating back to the 17th century, and his work was notably promoted by the Rudolf Wurlitzer Company of Cincinnati, one of the most influential musical instrument firms in America at the time. The label inside the instrument identifies it as a #1, a designation used by Glier to indicate his highest grade of production. This implies the use of carefully selected tone woods and the finest level of craftsmanship available in his workshop. Violins of this grade were intended to deliver a clear, balanced, and projecting tone, reflecting both technical refinement and the growing confidence of early American violin making within a tradition long dominated by Europe.
I think that we're looking at a violin that's $10,000 to $12,000 in the retail world and represents an important part of American history.
Wow, that's amazing.
I was on a road trip with my parents into Montana, went on a fishing trip, stopped at a garage sale, and it was there. Picked it up for $1.
And what did you think the violin was?
We didn't look at it that close till I got home. Didn't really look inside till last week.
Okay.
And when we got tickets for the road show,
all right,
I started looking a little bit, and well, this might be something.
And what attracted you about it?
Well, my grandfather played, and my daughter plays also.
Really?
So
Now, do you think your daughter is going to play this violin?
It depends on what it's worth.
This violin is a distinguished example of early American violin making and can be confidently dated to 1901, based on the handwritten label found inside the F-hole. It was made in New York in the workshop of George Gemender, in collaboration with or under the direct influence of his son, George Gemender Jr., a family widely regarded as producing the finest American violins of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Although George Gemender Sr. passed away in 1899, instruments from this period closely follow his established standards of craftsmanship. The violin retains its original oil varnish, showing natural wear that has developed into a rich, undisturbed patina. This is a highly desirable feature, as it confirms the surface has never been revarnished or heavily restored. The wood, likely sourced from the northeastern United States, is of excellent quality, and the carving and construction are refined and well-balanced. Together, these elements indicate a violin made not only for visual beauty but also for strong tonal performance, giving it significance as both a collectible object and a serious musical instrument.
And it's in great shape.
Nice.
And you don't have any idea of the value of it?
I don't.
Well, the auction value of a Gemender & Son violin of this level is between $10,000 and $15,000 at auction.
Nice. Good buy for $1.
So you did well. Has your daughter tried to play it at all?
No, she hasn't. So.
Are you going to let her play it now?
I doubt it. Put it back away.
Came from my wife. It was a gift from her father, who purchased it in Chicago in 1955. And my understanding is that it was a piece of equipment from Jorge Klotz, part of the family from Mittenwald, Germany. I would like to get a verification that this is indeed a Klotz violin and not a copy.
This violin can be attributed to the Claus family tradition of Mittenwald, Germany, a major center of German violin making in the 18th century. Although a paper label inside suggests a date from the 1760s, labels are unreliable and can be altered, so the identification is based on construction features. The spruce top and maple back and ribs are consistent with Mittenwald work, and the grafted neck indicates an 18th century instrument that was later modernized. Distinctive Claus characteristics are present, including construction on an outside mold, inward set rib joints at the corners, a one-piece rib with a small locating notch aligned to the back seam, and scroll fluting that continues deeply into the throat. Stylistically, the violin appears slightly later than the early 1760s, but remains firmly within the 18th century. While it cannot be definitively attributed to Georg Claus himself, it is an authentic and finely made example from the wider Claus family workshop.
This instrument would sell for $15,000 in today's market.
Thank you. I was hoping for a definitive Georg Klotz creator, but we'll keep it in the family for a long time.
I think in about 1977, a friend of mine and I went to New York City to visit her aunt and uncle. I played the piano for everybody, And the next day they said, we have this violin that's been in our family forever, and you look like you really care about music. There's no one here to take care of it, so we want you to have it.
So they just gave you this violin after you played for them?
That's right.
And did these two bows come with it?
Yes.
This violin was made by Robert Glier, a German-trained maker who originated from Markneukirchen, one of the world's most important violin-making centers. Before 1880, he immigrated to the United States and established his workshop in Cincinnati, where this violin was produced in 1880, as confirmed by its original label. The instrument features a maple back and shows solid, careful workmanship typical of late 19th century American violins influenced by German tradition. One particularly interesting detail is the reinforced peg box, an added thickness of wood designed to prevent cracking. This reflects Glier's practical experience as a repairer and highlights a distinctly American approach to improving traditional European designs. Accompanying the violin is a finely made bow attributed to H.R. Freshener, a highly respected German bow maker trained in France and once appointed instrument maker to the King of Saxony. The shared Markneukirchen origin of both makers suggests a professional connection. Together, the violin and bow form a compelling example of transatlantic craftsmanship in the late 19th century.
So the violin, being a good, solid American violin, is probably worth, in the retail market, $3,000 as is. And after you do all the repairs, strings, and clean it up, do some varnish work on it, it would probably be worth $4,000.
Okay.
The bow, however, alone would be worth $4,000.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Purchased it probably 30, 35 years ago at an auction sale, and I waited till the last day when they had various things that they couldn't sell, and that's when I purchased it. Roughly $300 or $400.
$300 or $400.
I'm pretty frugal, so.
So why did you purchase it? Do you play violin?
No, I don't play the violin, but for some reason it just caught my eye, and I said, I'd like to have it. And
this violin is a well-made German instrument dating to the early 19th century, most likely produced in Mittenwald, one of Germany's most important violin-making centers. Although it bears an interior label dated around 1745, this label is a later reproduction, a common practice intended to associate an otherwise unsigned instrument with an earlier period. Stylistic analysis places the violin closer to the early 1800s, which aligns with its materials and construction. The varnish displays a warm color and notable transparency, characteristics typical of German violins from this era. The craftsmanship is solid and balanced rather than ornate, reflecting instruments made for serious musical use rather than pure decoration. Despite surface wear and minor scratches consistent with age and storage, the violin remains in good overall condition and retains its structural integrity.
It has some little scratches, and that's easily repaired. Just a nice German instrument from this time period in good condition today would have a retail value between $12,000 and $15,000.
Wow, that's pretty good investment. That's very surprising. I had no idea.
It was, I think, about 1965. My family moved from Colorado to Washington, D.C. My dad took a job with the Department of Agriculture. I would have been starting 6th grade, so my mom wanted to start me on an instrument, a string instrument, and we chose the violin.
Did you buy it at a violin shop from a violin dealer?
Yes, but I just remember walking into this room and I saw this violin, and the back of it is kind of white, and then it goes out to brown. That's what caught my eye first.
This violin, acquired in Washington, D.C. in the mid-1960s, stands out visually for its pale back that gradually darkens toward the edges, creating a subtle and elegant contrast. A wax seal marked MD appears on the back, most likely a personal seal added at some point in the instrument's history rather than an original maker's mark. The interior label is partially obscured and seems to be a later addition dated to the 1760s, but stylistic examination suggests the instrument itself was made earlier, around the mid-18th century. Its construction firmly places it within the German violin-making tradition, most plausibly associated with Nuremberg and possibly connected to refined regional workshops such as those in the Widholm Circle. The graceful outline, narrow edges, and delicately shaped corners are matched by an intricately carved scroll, revealing careful, unhurried handwork of a high order. Although the maple used is relatively plain, this is entirely consistent with quality German instruments of the period. Particularly noteworthy is the survival of the original neck, later re-angled at the heel during a 19th century modernization, preserving much of the violin's historical character.
In a retail shop environment, it should be worth at least $10,000, and I'm thinking somewhere between $10,000 and $15,000.
Oh, you've got to be kidding.
No, that's about right.
That's incredible. It makes me miss my dad even more. He's gone.
It belonged to my grandmother, my father's mother, and she was a violin teacher in the Chicago area for many years. I think that my grandmother got it from her first husband, who immigrated from Czechoslovakia in the 30s. But other than that, I have no idea.
And have you played it?
Yes, I am a violinist as well, and because I came to it in my 30s, I didn't play it as much as I was not in any symphonies at the time.
What is most striking when looking at this violin is the exceptional choice of wood. The back and ribs are made from beautifully figured maple with a subtle bird's eye effect, while the belly is crafted from straight-grained spruce, a material long favored by violin makers for its acoustic properties. This careful selection immediately points to the work of a skilled luthier who understood both visual balance and tonal performance. The label inside the instrument identifies the maker as Frantisek Herclik, a Czech violin maker working in Mladá Boleslav, and dates the violin to 1925, a period when he was at the height of his craftsmanship. The label further notes that the instrument is a copy after a violin by David Tekler of Rome, dated 1690. Tekler's original instruments are extremely rare and highly sought after, and Herclik's choice to model his work on such an example reflects both technical confidence and refined artistic judgment. The violin remains in very good condition, with no visible cracks and correct string height, indicating careful preservation.
Today's marketplace, in a retail setting, your violin would be in the $10,000 to $12,000 price range.
That's a lot for something, yeah. Wow, that's amazing.
Are you surprised a little bit?
Yes, I am surprised. We took bets on how much I thought it would be, and I guessed $2,000 to $3,000. Almost 5 times that. That's amazing.
My father was a violinist, a concert violinist, and he lived down in Florida. And one time he said he bought a wonderful violin, something better than he had. And he paid $175 for it, and he took it home.
Oh, and when was this?
In 1990, early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yes.
This violin was made by Ernst Heinrich Roth and is dated 1926, a period considered the most desirable in Roth's production. Roth was one of the most respected German violin makers of the early 20th century, working in Markneukirchen, a major center of violin making. His workshop produced instruments in several grades, and this example represents a high-quality level within his output. What makes this violin particularly notable is that it is an Amati copy, a model Roth produced only in limited numbers. The outline, F holes, and scroll closely follow the elegant proportions of the Amati family, the influential Italian makers of the 17th century. Inside, The violin retains its original label, identifying it as an Amati copy, along with Roth's internal branding, where the letter A denotes the Amati model. The instrument features a beautiful one-piece maple back, Italian spruce top, and an oil-based varnish typical of Roth's work, showing a warm reddish-brown tone that softens into a golden hue.
I would put a retail value on that of $10,000.
Oh my goodness. $10,000?
$10,000.
Oh my goodness.
What did you expect?
Oh my. I had no idea. Oh my goodness, that's wonderful.
Well,
We would have been thrilled.
I have a feeling this violin would sound fantastic if the bridge were up and it was ready to play. Would you be able to play it?
No, no one plays since the owner, which was my husband's grandfather. It's been in our possession for quite a few years. It's just been kind of safely stowed in a closet, and this is the first time it's come out.
Your husband's grandfather was a serious musician.
Yes, he insisted he played the violin, not the fiddle. It was a real contention point. He was kind of a joker.
So was he a classical player
Yes,
as well?
classical. Mm-hmm.
This violin immediately suggests strong musical potential, even though it is not currently set up to be played. The label inside reads Ernst Heinrich Roth, Markneukirchen, 1927, indicating it was made as a copy of an Antonio Stradivari violin from 1718. Such copies were carefully modeled on famous Italian instruments, aiming to capture their balance and tonal character. During the 1920s, the Roth family workshop in Markneukirchen shifted its focus toward producing high-quality artist violins for advanced players, particularly for the American market. Instruments from this period are known for their excellent materials, refined workmanship, and rich, projecting sound. Although this violin needs some restoration, it represents one of the most respected periods of Ernst Heinrich Roth's production and remains a fine example of early 20th century German violin making.
Mm-hmm. In the retail marketplace today, as is, this violin would have a value of $7,500.
Oh, wow. That's much more than we expected.
If you got it fixed up, which would only cost about $1,000, it might be worth as much as $9,500.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Well, it belonged to my mother. It was bought by my grandfather for my mother. She was in a quartet for a radio station during her teenage years.
What you've brought me today is a violin that was purchased from Carl Fischer in New York City in 1937. This other documentation shows the correspondence regarding the purchase, that it was purchased on installments, so it must not have been an easy purchase because it was paid for over time.
Yes.
This violin was purchased in New York City from Carl Fischer in 1937, as confirmed by surviving correspondence showing that it was paid for in installments, indicating how substantial the purchase was at the time. Inside the instrument is a label reading Johann Gottlob Heberlein, Neukirchen, 1808. Heberlein was a highly important German violin maker, working in Neukirchen, a town that later developed into Markneukirchen, one of the world's most significant centers of violin making. This violin dates from Heberlein's finest period and is notable for its exceptional purity of design and craftsmanship. Remarkably, it retains its original neck, which has been carefully raised to achieve a modern playing angle, a feature rarely found on instruments of this age. The violin features a one-piece maple back, with matching maple ribs, neck, and scroll, while the belly is made of spruce, the traditional tone wood used for centuries. The quality of materials, workmanship, and preservation make this a distinguished and historically important example of early 19th century German violin making.
In the retail market, a violin with this kind of purity would sell for $5,000.
Wow. Nice. Pretty exciting.
It belonged to my great-grandmother. She was a musician, took music when she was a child, and later on in life was a music teacher.
Do you think she used this one as a child?
I don't know. I know that was the one she had as an adult.
Well, this is a classy little fiddle.
Is it?
At first glance, this violin stands out for its elegance and careful craftsmanship, qualities that immediately suggest a serious instrument rather than a simple student piece. It was most likely made in Mirecourt, France, between 1880 and 1890, a period when the town was the heart of French violin production. Instruments from Mirecourt were often produced in established workshops, and this violin clearly reflects the refined, classical French style through its well-formed corners, finely carved scroll, and beautifully detailed button at the base of the neck. Although it is a 3/4 size violin, it was not intended as a cheaply made child's instrument. The quality of construction and materials indicates it was designed for long-term, dedicated use. Particularly noteworthy is the accompanying full-size French bow, an unusual but significant pairing. Likely made for the firm of J.B. Vion around 1860 to 1870, the bow features silver-mounted fittings and strong, confident workmanship. Made of Brazil wood rather than Pernambuco, it still shows considerable artistic and musical value, and stylistic details suggest it may be the work of Nicolas Malines. Together, the violin and bow form a historically and musically important set.
I think about $1,000 worth of restoration. This would be perhaps retail value $12,000 to $15,000.
Oh, wow.
This bow, I think, may have been made by the bow maker Nicolas Malines. And he did work for Vion, worked on his own, but also worked for Vion. The bow as is, not easy to sell as it is, but I would think between $3,000 and $5,000 as it sits. If I'm right about the maker, but I think I am.
Well, all righty.
My father is a violin maker. He used to collect violins, repair them, sell them, aside from making them.
So this is a picture that you brought in of your father in his workshop in Albuquerque, is that correct?
That's correct.
So you can see all of his tools in the picture and his workbench, and he seems very hard at it.
Yes, very, very devoted.
And how did you come to own these two violins then?
My mother had them after he passed away, and when she passed away, I inherited the violins.
These two violins come from the working legacy of a dedicated violin maker who not only built instruments but also collected, repaired, and studied them in depth. Careful examination shows that both instruments carry French maker labels, yet detailed analysis reveals that neither label is original, a common situation in the violin world. The first violin, bearing the name Georges Chanot, has been heavily altered, most notably through a later revarnishing. This intervention significantly diminishes its historical and market value and makes it impossible to attribute the instrument to a specific maker with certainty. The second violin, although also fitted with a non-original label naming Benoist Fleury, tells a very different story. Its internal construction, arching, and workmanship point convincingly to London, where it was produced by a highly skilled maker associated with the Fent school in the mid-19th century. Despite the misleading label, the quality of craftsmanship firmly establishes it as an important and valuable instrument, demonstrating how expert analysis can outweigh what is written on paper.
We know that this violin was made in London by one of the very, very famous makers who would have worked in the school of Fent in the 1840s or 1850s and would have a retail value in today's marketplace of at least $8,000.
Oh my goodness. Even with the label the way it is, huh?
That's correct.
Wow, that's good.
I understand you grew up playing the violin, is
yes,
that correct?
Yes, I did.
And that you acquired this instrument when?
In 1984.
Was this your first full-size violin?
Actually, it was my second one. I traded in my first one when I was a little girl. My mom actually bought this one for me with my violin teacher in Venice, Florida at a music store. I know it's from the 1920s. It's been sitting around in a closet for the past few years.
Do you have any idea what your mother paid for it?
Maybe about $500.
Well, it's a lovely instrument.
This violin carries a finely detailed label reading M. Nebel and Brothers Fichette, New York, 1921, complete with a handwritten date and a small family crest, an unusually comprehensive label by professional standards. The maker, Martin Nebel, came from a violin-making family in Mittenwald, Germany, and represents a generation of European-trained craftsmen who brought classical violin-making traditions to the United States in the early 20th century. The instrument is constructed with a maple back, ribs, neck, and scroll, paired with a spruce belly, using high-quality American tone woods and displaying carving of a notably refined standard. One distinctive feature is the purfling, which flows into and out of the corners in a manner considered unconventional by European norms, reflecting a uniquely American interpretation of design. Although the violin shows evidence of earlier repairs that are structurally sound but visually modest, it remains a strong and expressive example of early American violin making and the transfer of old-world craftsmanship into a developing American musical identity.
Well, this instrument, as is, in a retail market today, would probably be worth $6,000.
Oh my gosh.
And if those repairs hadn't been made, it would probably be more like $7,000 or $7,500.
Oh my goodness.